Welcome to Section 2, Total Cost of Ownership. Many businesses ask, how do you compare on-premises versus cloud implementations? The difference between these two options is how they're deployed. An on-premises infrastructure is installed on a company's own computers and servers. There are several fixed costs, also known as capital expenses, that are associated with this traditional infrastructure. Capital expenses include facilities, hardware, licenses, and maintenance staff. Scaling up can be expensive and time-consuming. Scaling down does not reduce fixed costs. A cloud infrastructure is purchased from a service provider who builds and maintains the facilities, hardware, and maintenance staff. A customer pays for what is used. Scaling up or down is simple. Costs are easy to estimate because they depend on service use. It is difficult to compare an on-premises IT delivery model with the AWS cloud. The two are different because they use different concepts and terms. To evaluate an on-premise solution, consider capital expenditure and long planning cycles. This model requires multiple components to buy, build, manage, and refresh resources over time. Evaluation of AWS Cloud involves a discussion about flexibility, agility, and consumption-based costs. So how can you identify the best option? You can identify the best option by comparing the on-premises solution to a cloud solution. Total cost of ownership, or TCO, is a financial estimate intended to help buyers and owners determine the direct and indirect costs of a product or system. TCO includes the cost of a service, plus all the costs that are associated with owning the service. In the cloud environment, TCO is used to compare the cost of running an entire infrastructure environment for a specific workload in an on-premises or colocation facility to the same workload running on a cloud-based infrastructure. Companies use this comparison for budgeting purposes or to make decisions about the optimal deployment solution. Some of the costs associated with data center management include server costs for both hardware and software, and facilities costs to house the equipment, storage costs for the hardware, administration, and facilities, network costs for hardware, administration, and facilities, and IT labor costs that are required to administer the entire solution. When you compare an on-premises to a cloud solution, it is important to accurately assess the true cost of both options. With the cloud, most costs are upfront and readily calculated. For example, cloud providers give transparent pricing based on different usage metrics, such as RAM, storage, and bandwidth, among others. Pricing is often fixed per unit of time. Customers gain certainty over pricing and are then able to readily calculate costs based on several different usage estimates. Compare this process to on-premises technology. Though they're sometimes difficult to determine, calculations of in-house cost must take into account both direct costs that a company running a server, like power, floor space, storage, and IT operations to manage those resources, as well as indirect costs of running a server, like network and storage infrastructure. This diagram is conceptual, and it does not include every cost item. Depending on the solution you are implementing, software costs can include database, management, and middle-tier costs. Facilities costs can include upgrades, maintenance, building security, taxes, and so on. IT labor costs can include security administration and application administration costs. This diagram includes an abbreviated list to demonstrate the type of costs that are involved in data center maintenance. Here's a sample cost comparison. This example shows a cost comparison for an on-premises solution and a cloud solution over 3 years. For this comparison, two similar environments were constructed to represent the on-premises and AWS environments. Additional direct and indirect costs that are associated with the on-premises solution were not included. The components of the on-premises solution include one virtual machine with 4 CPUs, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and a Linux operating system. Average utilization is 100%, optimized by RAM. The components of a comparable AWS environment include one M4.extra large instance with 4 CPUs, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and the instance type is a 3-year partial upfront reserved instance. The on-premises 3-year total cost is $167,422. The AWS Cloud 3-year total cost is $7,509, which is a 96% savings over the on-premises solution. Thus, the 3-year total savings using cloud infrastructure would be $159,913. This comparison helps a business clearly understand the differences between the alternatives. What is the difference in the costs? Remember, the on-premises solution is predicted. It continues to incur costs whether the capacity is used. In contrast, the AWS solution is commissioned when needed and decommissioned when the resources are no longer in use, which results in lower overall costs. AWS offers the AWS Pricing Calculator to help you estimate a monthly AWS bill. You can use this tool to explore AWS services and create an estimate for the cost of your use cases on AWS. You can model your solutions before building them, explore the price points and calculations behind your estimate, and find the available instance types and contract terms that meet your needs. This enables you to make informed decisions about using AWS. You can plan your AWS costs and usage or price out setting up a new set of instances and services. The AWS Pricing Calculator helps you estimate monthly cost of AWS services, identify opportunities for cost reduction, and model your solutions before building them. It also allows you to explore price points and calculations behind your estimate and find the available instance types and contract terms that meet your needs. The AWS Pricing Calculator enables you to name your estimate and to create and name groups of services. Groups are containers that you add services to in order to organize and build your estimate. You can organize your groups and services by cost center, department, product architecture, and so forth. AWS Pricing Calculator estimates are displayed in multiple ways. The total for your first 12 months is the total estimate for your current group and all of the services and groups in your current group. It combines the upfront and monthly estimates. Your total upfront is how much you're estimated to pay upfront as you set up your AWS stack. Your total monthly is the monthly estimated spend while you run your AWS stack. Within a group, you can see the estimated cost for each service. If you want to price out different ways to build your AWS setup, you can use different groups for each variation of your setup and compare the estimates for the different setups. Hard benefits include reduced spending on compute, storage, networking, and security. They also include reductions in hardware and software purchases, reductions in operational costs, backup, and disaster recovery, and a reduction in operations personnel. Cloud total cost of ownership defines what will be spent on the technology after adoption, or what it costs to run the solution. Typically, a TCO analysis looks at the as-is on-premises infrastructure and compares it with the cost of the to-be infrastructure state in the cloud. While this difference might be easy to calculate, it might only provide a narrow view of the total financial impact of moving to the cloud. A return on investment analysis, or ROI, can be used to determine the value that is generated while considering spending and saving. This analysis starts by identifying the hard benefits in terms of direct and visible cost reductions and efficiency improvements. Next, soft savings are identified. Soft savings are value points that are challenging to accurately quantify, but they can be more valuable than the hard savings. It's important for you to understand both hard and soft benefits to understand the full value of the cloud. Soft benefits include reusing services and applications that enable you to define and redefine solutions by using the same cloud service. There is also an increase in developer productivity as well as improved customer satisfaction. Further, agile business processes can quickly respond to new and emerging opportunities and allow increased global reach. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.
Welcome. This video will review a case study on the total cost of ownership for Delaware North, a major food and hospitality company. Delaware North originated in 1915 as a peanut and popcorn concessions vendor. Today, it's a leader in the food service and hospitality industry. Delaware North serves more than 500 million customers annually at more than 200 locations around the world, resulting in $3 billion in annual sales. The company's on-premises data center was becoming too expensive and inefficient to support its global business operations. Delaware North had to constantly upgrade aging equipment in order to rapidly deploy new solutions to meet customer requirements. The CIO stated Delaware North needed to find a better solution. They turned to AWS. In 2013, Delaware North migrated 50 websites to AWS as a test bed. They conducted an evaluation to see if they could move all of their workloads to AWS. The evaluation process centered on 3 criteria. First, a cloud solution needed a broad set of technologies that could handle all of Delaware North's enterprise workloads while delivering support for critical functions. From an operational perspective, Delaware North wanted the features and flexibility to modify core IT processes to improve efficiencies and lower costs. Finally, financial requirements needed to demonstrate a return on investment for moving away from their existing data center environment. A cost comparison completed by Delaware North demonstrated that it could save $3.5 million based on a 5-year run rate by moving its on-premises data center to AWS. Their CIO noted that the deep technology stack available on AWS was more than sufficient to meet the company's technical requirements. Delaware North saved at least $3.5 million over 5 years by reducing their server hardware by more than 90%. The most dramatic physical change was the elimination of 205 servers. Everything that ran on that hardware was migrated to AWS. About 6 months into its cloud migration, Delaware North realized benefits to its data center consolidation, security compliance, disaster recovery, and faster deployment times for new services. By leveraging the security best practices of AWS, Delaware North was able to eliminate a lot of compliance tasks that in the past took up valuable time and money. The solution helps Delaware North operate with greater speed and agility. It used to take between 2 and 3 weeks to provision new business units. Now it only takes 1 day. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.
Welcome. This video will cover AWS Organizations. Depending on the size of your business, sometimes it is easier to assign separate AWS accounts to each department or team. This will allow for the spending of each group to have a clear and defined report about their use and expenses. When this happens, we need a service which ties all of these separate accounts together. We use AWS Organizations for consolidated billing of multiple accounts. AWS Organizations is a free account management service that enables you to consolidate multiple AWS accounts into an organizational tree, with each branch representing a department or team. AWS Organizations include consolidated billing and organization security management capabilities. Here is some terminology to understand the structure of AWS Organizations. The diagram shows a basic organization, or root, that consists of 7 accounts that are organized into 4 organizational units, or OUs. An OU is a branch for accounts. A branch can also contain other branches, no different than a regular tree. This hierarchy is like an upside-down tree with the root at the top. A branch can have only one parent, and each account can be a member of exactly one branch. An account is a standard AWS account that contains your AWS resources. In general, AWS Organizations enables you to do more than just consolidate accounts for billing. You can also use it to apply security controls to one or more of the accounts represented. AWS Organizations does not replace associating AWS identity and access management policies with users, groups, and roles within an AWS account. With IAM policies, you can allow or deny access to AWS services. An IAM policy can be applied only to IAM users, groups, or roles, and it cannot restrict the AWS account itself. In contrast, with organizations, you use service control policies to allow or deny access to particular AWS services for AWS accounts directly or as a group of accounts in a branch. The specified actions from an attached service control policy affect the entire account, including all IAM users, groups, and roles for the account. It also includes the AWS account root user. Keep in mind that this process assumes that you have access to 2 or more existing AWS accounts and that you can sign into each account as an administrator. Review these steps for setting up AWS organizations. Step 1 is to create your organization with your current AWS account as the primary account. You also invite one AWS account to join your organization and create another account as a member account. Step 2 is to create 2 organizational units in your new organization and place the member accounts in those OUs. Step 3 is to create service control policies, which enable you to apply restrictions to what actions can be delegated to users and roles in the member accounts. A service control policy is a type of organizational control policy. Step 4 is to test your organization's policies. Sign in as a user for each of the roles, such as OU1 or OU2, and see how the service control policies impact account access. Alternatively, you can use the IAM policy simulator to test and troubleshoot IAM and resource-based policies that are attached to IAM users, groups, or roles in your AWS account. Like other services, AWS organizations can be managed through different interfaces. The AWS Management Console is a browser-based interface that you can use to manage your organization and your AWS resources. You can perform any task in your organization by using the console. AWS command line interface tools enable you to issue commands at your system's command line to perform AWS Organizations tasks. This method can be faster and more convenient than using the console. You can also use AWS software development kits to handle tasks such as cryptographically signing requests, managing errors, and retrying requests automatically. AWS SDKs consist of libraries and sample code for various programming languages and platforms, such as Java, Python, Ruby, .NET, iOS, and Android. The AWS Organizations HTTPS Query API gives you programmatic access to AWS Organizations. You can use the API to issue HTTPS requests directly to the service. When you use the HTTPS API, you must include code to digitally sign requests by using your credentials. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.
Welcome. This video will cover AWS billing tools. AWS Billing and Cost Management is a service that you use to pay your AWS bill, monitor your usage, and budget your expenses. Billing and Cost Management enables you to forecast and obtain a better idea of what your costs and usage might be in the future so that you can plan ahead. You can set a custom time period and determine whether you would like to view your data at a monthly or daily level of granularity. With the filtering and grouping functionality, you can further analyze your data using a variety of available dimensions. The AWS Cost and Usage Report tool enables you to identify opportunities for optimization by understanding your cost and usage data trends and how you are using your AWS implementation. The AWS Billing Dashboard lets you view the status of your month-to-date AWS expenses and identify the services that account for the majority of your overall monthly bill. You can also understand at a high level how costs are trending. One of the graphs that is located on the dashboard is the spend summary. The spend summary shows you how much you spent last month, the estimated costs of your AWS usage for the month to date, and a forecast for how much you are likely to spend this month. Another graph is month-to-date spend by service, which shows the top services that you use most and the proportion of costs that are attributed to that service. From the billing dashboard, you can access several other cost management tools that you can use to estimate and plan your AWS expenses. These tools include AWS budgets, AWS cost and usage reports, and AWS Cost Explorer. There is also the AWS Bills page. The AWS Bills page lists the costs that you incurred over the past month for each AWS service, with a further breakdown by AWS region and linked account. This tool gives you access to the most up-to-date information on your costs and usage, including your monthly bill and the detailed breakdown of your AWS services that you use. The AWS Billing and Cost Management console includes the Cost Explorer page for viewing your AWS cost data at a graph. With Cost Explorer, you can visualize, understand, and manage your AWS costs and usage over time. The Cost Explorer includes a default report that visualizes your costs and usage for your AWS services. The monthly running costs report gives you an overall view of all your costs for the past 3 months. It also provides forecasted numbers for the coming month with a corresponding confidence interval. You can also use AWS budgets to create notifications for when you go over your budget for the month. Budgets can be tracked at the monthly, quarterly, or yearly level, and you can customize the start and end dates. Budget alerts can be sent via email or via Amazon Simple Notification Service, Amazon SNS. The AWS Cost and Usage Report is a single location for accessing comprehensive information about your AWS costs and usage. This tool lists the usage for each service category that is used by an account and its users in hourly or daily line items, and any tax that you activated for tax allocation purposes. You can have AWS publish billing reports to an S3 bucket. These reports can be updated once a day. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.
Welcome. Today we will look at the AWS Billing Dashboard. You can reach the Billing Dashboard from the AWS homepage by using the My Account drop-down menu. In this case, we've created a temporary account for me called Matt Billing. As I scroll down, it's My Billing Dashboard. Click on the link, and it opens up the Billing and Cost Management Dashboard, which shows a summary in a single view of my costs associated with this particular account. In this case, on the right-hand side, we have the month-to-date spend by service. So it gives you a nice overview to see which particular services are incurring the most costs. In the middle, it also gives you the spend summary. So the middle bar here is the month-to-date. And then I have a forecast based upon the current usage this month. And I also have a historical perspective where I can look and see what happened last month to see where we're at. If I'd like to dive deeper into the costs associated with this account, I click Cost Explorer. Cost Explorer brings up the current costs in the month along with forecasted month-end costs. It shows me how much it's increased or decreased over the month, and I can go ahead and click Explore Costs. By exploring costs, it drops down. By the way, before I do that, look on the right-hand side. It shows the December trends. So SageMaker costs are up, and so we can go ahead also see by region that costs are up. As I click Explore Costs, I now have the ability along the top to categorize and drive down deeper into the costs. So for example, I can look at costs per region. Here it shows that US West, Oregon, is where we're incurring the most costs. I could go ahead and look at an instance type, for example. M4 Large Elasticsearch is incurring the most costs within this account. T2 Micro, T1 Micro, not as much. So you can look at it by instance type. I can also click Service to see how I'm incurring costs per service. The nice thing is if my boss came to me and said, Matt, I need a report. Can you give me a report on how much our costs have been over the year to date within this account? I can click New Report. That would be a cost and usage reports. I have other options in terms of reports. I click Create Report, drop-down menu under last 3 months gives me the option here for year to date, along with 1 year, 6 months, or I can do a custom. So I'm going to do year to date. I click apply, and now it does show me the costs incurred here per month. And it does show on the bottom here that June and July we incurred a high amount of cost. July $1,400 and in June $1,600, almost $1,700 in costs. So those were busy months. In this case, I happen to know that we were developing a new class, and that's why we incurred those types of usage within June and July in this particular account. So I can go ahead and click Save As. I can entitle the report. So year-to-date costs. Oh, and I happen to already create this one. So year-to-date costs for Matt billing account, let's say. I can click Save Report. And now that report has been saved. Over here on the left-hand side, there's a saved reports. So there are a whole bunch of different reports that I can go ahead and look at. I can go ahead and even create reports from here. So here's my report that I did create. And of course, it's the same view we saw earlier. The last thing to look at is budgets. Budgets allow us to go in from a cost perspective or from a usage perspective to go ahead and set up a budget that will allow us to trigger an alert when we exceed that budget. So we can set the parameters. In this case, there's a monthly budget. It's associated with cost. It gives us the current cost, and it's budgeted to $300. Forecasted $294. And then it tells us overview where we're at. If I click on this monthly budget, it gives me an overview of what's actually incurred, and it shows the alert. So the alert that was set up when this budget was created was the actual costs exceed by 10% the budgeted amount. In this case, the budgeted amount is $300. The actual costs, if they exceed by 10%, which is $30, then this particular Amazon account or email account will be notified. And when that's notified, then you can go ahead and you know that something's occurring, and you can go in and handle it. It doesn't shut off anything or stop anything. It just gives you a warning. You can also do it by usage. So you can look at the usage of different services within your AWS account. So there's a lot of granularity here that you can go ahead and set up so that you can make sure that you're within your budgets. For example, this account's used to create classes, so we can make sure that in creating a particular class, in testing the labs, that we don't exceed a particular budget, in this case $300. That changes. Obviously, you saw earlier in the year that we incurred a lot more costs because it was a different kind of class that was more resource intensive. And so that would obviously require us to change the budget, or we would constantly be getting alerts because, as you saw before, back in June and July, it was $1,700 and $1,500 incurred of costs, and the budgets here, it's just set for $300. So budgets allow you to go in and actually keep track and get a better overview of the costs you're incurring within your AWS account. Thank you, and have a great day.